Hey guys, so we are working through our vertebrates or chordates. Recall that this word means that they have a backbone. So far we have learned about fish. Fish are vertebrates. They are ectotherms, so that means they're cold-blooded. There's three types: jawless, cartilaginous, and bony. But moving on from them, we are learning about amphibians and reptiles today because they are very closely related, and we're just going to learn them together on the same day. So, here we go. Amphibians. This includes frogs, toads, and salamanders as example organisms. The word amphibian, right here, means double life. Okay, so I'm going to explain that. The word amphibian means double life. So they are ectothermic as well. That C, remember that C needs to trigger in your brain, cold-blooded. Ectotherm is cold-blooded. So when these creatures wake up first thing in the morning, they need to go lay out in the sun for a little bit in order to warm their body up. They have to warm their blood and their skin, and that's going to give them the energy to make it through the rest of the day. If it's a cloudy day, they actually don't do a whole lot because they're too cold to do anything. So being ectothermic definitely has its disadvantages. They use their moist skin to breathe along with lungs. Okay, so they can kind of respire or breathe straight through their skin, or they do have lungs just like we do. They have little nose holes and they have a mouth. So just to get into the word amphibian a little bit more, because honestly I can't remember if it's on the next slide or not. Amphibians have a double life because they are the first part of their life is going to be in the water. So, okay, it looks like it's not going to be there. So the first part of their life is going to start in the water. They start as little tadpoles or little eggs, and then eventually they emerge from the water. So think of a frog. It starts as a tadpole, and then it hops on out and it climbs up a tree or under a rock or something. So that's why it's called double life, because they start in water, their adult life is on land. So that's that one. They are tetrapods, so this means they have 4 legs. Fish obviously do not have legs, so these are our first vertebrates with legs. They live on land, in trees, underground, and then some do still live in water as adults. Specifically, it's called an axolotl. Okay, there, I think I have a picture of it on this slide. There it is. So this guy right here, it's a salamander or a type of salamander that lives in water as adults, but it's one of the only types that does still live in water later on in life, and its gills actually are these little feather things up on its head. So that's a really unique adaptation because they live in low oxygen areas, so having the gills on the outside of their body allows them to collect more and more oxygen. So they do lay their eggs in water, all amphibians. That's why eggs start for frogs in the water. And they have gills which eventually develop into lungs. So these guys kind of are the full package. They start in the water, they can live on land, they can breathe with their skin or lungs. They're really talented. They have a lot of adaptations which allows them to survive in a bunch of different places, such as land, trees, underground, and some of them still live in water. So they have all sorts of adaptations. So there are 3 types that we need to know: frogs and toads, salamanders, and a newt. Newts are just little lizard, cute little guys. Okay, so here's a nice tree frog, nice and bright green. That adaptation allows him to blend in with the leaf around him. And I'm sure the orange is some benefit. Giant orange eyes. And we are on to reptiles. You can tell this little tortoise here, very hungry. That raspberry tastes very, very good. Maybe it's a strawberry. Who knows? He knows. So, alligators, snakes, and chameleons are really good examples of a reptile. Alligators, crocodiles, snakes. They are also ectothermic. That word means cold-blooded. Remember that C. I'm just going to keep pointing it out. The C in ectotherm means cold-blooded. So alligators, snakes, chameleons, crocodiles, they got to lay out in the sun in order to get warm for the day. They have very scaly skin. They do have lungs, which allows them to lay their eggs on land. If you've ever seen a sea turtle, those are reptiles. They actually lay their eggs up on land. They will emerge from the water. They'll go up on the beach. They'll dig a hole. They'll lay all their eggs down in the hole, cover it up, and then swim away and never look back. So these guys have adaptations to allow them to lay their eggs on land. Here's a tortoise. This is actually a tortoise laying its egg. So you can see here that it dug a little hole. It's going to lay an egg down in it, nice and safe. And in a couple days, weeks, or months, little baby tortoises are going to come out. So sea turtles do live in water, but they do breathe air. So think of Crush and Squirt from Finding Nemo. They don't show it in the movie too much, but they do have to actually come up to the surface and breathe in that oxygen. They do not have gills that they can breathe underwater. So sea turtles generally live kind of close to the top of the ocean. They're not going to go down in the deep, deep, deep parts because they need to come back up to breathe. Okay, so reptiles must have adaptations to keep their cells moist. So here's the biggest change from fish and amphibians. So fish need to keep their skin moist, and that's super easy because it's a fish. It lives in water. Amphibians, for the most part, it's pretty easy because they start their lives in water, and they're going to stay very close to water so that they can dip their bodies into it so that they can stay moist at all times. But reptiles, they don't need to have moist skin. If you've ever touched a crocodile, an alligator, a snake, or some kind of big old lizard, they don't have wet skin. Theirs is very dry and scaly. But their cells, just like your cells, need to stay moist. Okay, you don't dip in a pool once a day, but all of your cells still have moisture in them. They're all hydrated. So you have an adaptation that is very similar to these guys, or they have one that's very similar to us. So their skin is very thick with scales or scutes, or scuts, depending on how you want to say that one. Or you could say scutes. I think it's so cute. So this thicker skin, kind of think back to the plants. Remember we had a cuticle on a flower or on a leaf. What that cuticle did is it was waxy and it kept in the water. Same thing here. These scales or scutes are going to allow the water to stay inside the cell. They're not going to sweat it out as easily. And they breathe using lungs. So here is some, I believe this is alligator skin if I'm correct. You can see here the giant scales. These plates are going to help them move. Places where the plates are smaller, that's a joint. So that might be their wrist or their elbow or their shoulder. Where it's bigger, that's in between joints. So that's your forearm or up near your upper arm. Okay, they do breathe using lungs. And this is where they do match us pretty closely. Reptiles have kidneys, and you have kidneys as well. This is obviously a human, and here's where they are. If you put your hands on your back right above your hips, that's exactly where your kidneys are. They're kind of protected by your hips. This organ, what it does is it sucks out the water and it keeps the water inside of your body. So when you pee, which is several times a day, your kidneys are actually extracting the water out of your blood. It filters it down into your bladder, and then right here is your pee hole. Okay, so ladies and gents, you got a pee hole. So your kidneys are very adaptable, though. They can adapt to different conditions. So Miss Sewell and I, we try and drink a lot of water. So our kidneys are always filtering out that extra water. Okay, so Miss Sewell and I, we pee a lot. And those of you that drink water regularly, you probably pee a lot more. If you don't drink any water and you notice that your pee is very brown or dark yellow, your kidneys are telling you, hey, you need to drink more water. It's really dry in here. Your skin, your cells are starting to dehydrate. So your kidneys actually can tell you a lot about how healthy you are. So you want very light yellow or clear pee. That's your kidneys telling you, hey, good job. If you have dark yellow or brown pee, you totally need to drink more water. Most of these reptiles develop inside a tough-shelled egg. So I keep talking about the sea turtle laying its shell or laying its eggs up on the beach. Same thing for alligators, crocodiles, snakes. All of them lay eggs. This helps the water stay inside. So this little guy right here, this little sea turtle, when he cracked open his egg, you can see here's a little reflection because that's some water. There was actually water down in this egg with him in order to keep him hydrated. He didn't need to breathe while he was inside the shell. So as soon as he came out, he took his first breath, and happy days, he can go join Crush in the great Pacific, whatever you call that, water thing. I need to watch Nemo. Most reptiles do reproduce sexually, and finally, for the first time ever, these organisms are actually, air quotes, kissing, wink wink, and they are going to make a baby together. So a mommy and a daddy alligator, they come together, they do a kiss, and then some babies pop out, you know, a little while later. So there are 4 types of reptiles: turtles and tortoises, tartaras. That's this guy right here. He lives on one specific island, somewhere down where it's warm. Lizards and snakes and crocs and alligators. So those are your 4 types of reptiles there. That's it. Easy enough. So you should be done with your amphibian and your reptile notes. Wait until the timer goes off, and while you are waiting, please review the vocabulary on Quizlet. It's classification part 2. When you are finished with that, if you get 100%, show one of us, go back to Google Classroom, check, make sure there's not something else you have to do, and nice job.